Okay, so welcome to my presentation about the plugins I'm making from time to time. My name is, you know it, okay. So since 2001, we got quite a few plugins, currently 51. Also that number is always changing a little bit. 48 plugins are in the complete pack, 3 plugins are separate for SQL, ChartDirector, and DynaPDF. We currently have 520 plugin parts, which I built for 15 platforms. So it takes a couple of hours if I need to make a rebuild for some reason. Like getting a new version of Xcode is always half a day of work. Then we have 80,000 items documented. That's a lot of things. And if anything is missing also, please use the feedback links on the documentation page to tell me what's missing, because it's so much. We have over 3,000 classes now and 2,300 example projects. So if you have a month of holiday, you could try them all. Okay, let's talk about the different Xojo versions. So I have to regularly update the plugins to newer Xojo versions. Like there was something like API 2, with some changes on the folder item, on the execute SQL, adding row set and datetime classes. I have to update the WebKit versions from time to time, and especially the Chromium libraries. So every time William or who does it updates the plugin inside Xojo for the Chromium engine, I have to get exactly the same version of the source code to rebuild my plugin to match the version and avoid any crashes. Then I added Apple Silicon support, of course. I converted all my controls to have a desktop prefix, and over 100 little methods which extend existing controls so they still work. And recently I added Windows support for ARM, so you can use the plugins on the ARM target. And I also prepared the plugins for Linux 64-bit already for ARM. So as soon as you're ready, we can try them. So let's talk about what's new and changed since last conference. Well, I don't want to talk about everything for the last 3 years. We have a few videos on the website where you can learn what was new last year. So I want to just summarize what's new this year and maybe a few things from last year. Like we got the fidget plugins rewritten to use the newer API from them. So if you have any need for a little USB device to connect to, they offer several sensors, humidity, light, touch, pressure, whatever. And you can just connect them to your Mac or PC and use our plugin classes to, well, get the measurement results, or use here little devices for in and out pins, so you can turn on pins or read the whether a pin has power. You can control little displays, so you can build a lot of nice things. Like you could have a weather station in your garden and write it yourself in Xojo and just make a nice screen with all the measurements. Or you could put something together where it measures how much light is there, what's the temperature, and controls your sun shields for the office. So then we got the Scintilla Control, which is an advanced text editor for desktop projects. We use it mainly for showing source code. So it has syntax highlighting for over 100 different languages. And one of the syntax highlighter I made myself is the one for Xojo. So we can show Xojo source code. We have code folding, so if you like, you can fold if statements or loops. We also have support for auto-completion and call tips, so you can define how the control reacts to auto-completion and provide it with the suggestions. And if someone is clicking on a word, you could show details in a tooltip, or like here the call tips, like you want to show the parameters of a function call maybe. We have in the example, we have find and replace, and you can show errors and style all the syntax as you want. So the examples show you how you can do that, but you can customize it as you need. And this control is supported on Mac, Windows, and Linux. Let me show you 3 screenshots. So here we have Xojo script code, HTML, and a MySQL example. So if you have any need to show that in your application, you can use the control. It may do a little bit more than a text area. Then for a couple of years we use DynaPDF now for doing anything with PDF. And we recently added check conformance support for newer PDF versions. So if you have to make PDF A, we now also not just do PDF A 2, 3, 1, of course 2, and we also have 2U and 3U versions. So the PDF standard creates new versions all the time. And so we just add them as we need it. We also recently got PDF X5 and X6. Some people need that. We also have examples for making invoices as PDFs with embedded XML, which is the standard in Germany, Zugpferd, and I think the French standard is Facture X. So we can do that with a plugin by embedding the XML file. We also have new functions for complex text layouts on Windows. That means that the plugin, if you use a letter which is not in the current font, we can pick up a letter from a replacement font, which is really handy, but currently only works on Windows, and Mac support is not yet there. So automatic font substitution, yeah, and font lists. So if a font is not found, we can pick an alternative font. And we also got object compression, which allows you to compress PDF files even smaller. Yeah, and get smaller files. We also got a version info class, so you can better analyze what version details one file has, because it's not just a version number, but also a couple of features the file applies to. And our function to convert style text from Xojo format into the DynaPDF format to directly output a text area on a PDF page got updated with an option to set the leading factor, which is the line height, basically. Then I added things for iOS over the time, like we have 3 nice controls there. One is SceneKit for 3D output. Then we have the map with Apple Maps, and Web Viewer with the plugin, which can do a little bit more than the HTML viewer, which is built in. We can also, with a few utility functions, put style text on a control, like a label, which was also requested by one of the users. And we have the class for sharing. So you can share a combination of files or style text, and for example share it as an email and also pass in a subject line and a recipient. Then we got pickers for iOS, so I implemented the document picker, which is like an open and save dialog. So you can, with the UI document picker class, you can decide to either request a document where the user can pick it from their local files or from their iCloud folder, or you can save to same locations. Yeah, works nice. We also got the contact picker, because we have all the classes for the contacts and to work with the address book on your local device. So the CN contact picker view controller can show you the picker control, the picker dialog, so you can pick a user. and get the contact details. Then we have classes to work with Excel documents. For over 10 years, we now partner with the company libXL, so we can read and write Excel documents in the old format and the new format. Over the last year, we got support for autofilters. Like you can put thousands of rows in an Excel document and then declare that there's an area where you define a filter and then set which values show. So your report may have all countries, for example, but you only highlight the US, for example. Then we got a class for form controls. So if the Excel document contains a form, we can find those form fields and read the values or change the values. And also when you want to pass in style text to the cells, you can do that with a plugin. Next, we got NSNetService classes. That's classes to get Bonjour support on Mac and iOS. We also have the cross-platform classes for Mac, Windows, and Linux. But those here are special classes mainly for iOS. So your iOS device can find the Mac app on a desktop. So you can easily exchange data by finding one device from the other. So you can register a service on your Mac, for example, and your companion iOS app can find it in the local network. And this works with asynchronous events, so your application is not blocked. Then I updated the Tesseract engine to version 5, or actually 5.1. So you can now decide which version you want to load. And if there's a newer version coming, you can just download it, load it, and get more languages and better quality for your text recognition. We also can provide you on the text recognition. We have an example which takes the position of the text and then can, like this, can draw the rectangles. Or we have a version which produces a PDF and just puts the picture in the PDF, the text on top. And if you make the text invisible, you can then have basically the picture there and you can still select text and copy it. Then we have functions for barcodes. For years to recognize and generate barcode. But recently I added support for the setbar library. And this library supports a couple of barcodes to recognize. And we picked it because it can do several barcodes in an image. And it can, on a big page, it can find the barcode, which the older Sing classes I also have in the plugin didn't do well. And you can, of course, combine it with our classes to get a video picture from your camera. So you can scan a barcode on a picture from the camera. Then last year there was a little talk from Jeff about a grid control. So I thought about it. For the time being, we have a need for something, and some clients then asked me, well, could you please actually make this example? So I made an example for container-based list of containers. And for Mac and Windows, and it uses smooth scrolling on macOS by using NS scroll view. So you can try that already on the website and extend from there if you have a need for a list-based grid control. Then on macOS, Apple has built in a Finder functionality for the text control. So we can use this little find bar there in a text area. You can just show it when the user presses something like Command F, and then the user can do search and replace in your text area, and the controls are localized automatically. Can be handy if your app targets macOS for this. Yeah. Then we have ChartDirector, the plugin to, well, draw nice charts on the screen and in PDF. And I got a new example for showing how this works with real-time data. So the plugin can just receive values, for example, from a fidget device, and then draw a live shard there. And you can zoom in the shard if you like. You can select a range and yeah, work with the shard while it's receiving data and redrawing as needed. And you can easily redraw 30 times a second if you like. We also got with ChartDirector new types of shards in the last year. So we have a heat map layer, a tree map shard, and a tree map node. So you can show shards like this one to show the distribution of values. Then here we have a screenshot about a tree map shard, which I think is quite nice. It uses a texture for the shard, and we also got multi-page PDF output. So if you like, you can output several shards into one PDF document with ChartDirector directly. We also got support for higher DPI values. So we used to just generate our shards double the size and then shrink them for display, but now you can directly tell ChartDirector to generate your shard with a double resolution for a high DPI screen. And the surface projection got better, so we can now generate this type of shard. Yeah. Also, you can output your shard as PDF and SVG with a surface shard. And over the different versions of ChartDirector, the PDF output got better. So in earlier versions, a lot of shards would have been rendered as a picture and put in the PDF, but now more shards are added as vector graphics. Then we got the NS collection view. This is a collection view for macros. It's like a grid where you dynamically load entries. You can have millions of items there, and the containers to show the items are created on demand as needed. The layout is changing when you resize the box, and you can define how it should layout. So, like if you resize the screen, items would move from the second row to the first row to fill the space, and it's very flexible, and it's what Apple uses for a lot of their applications. Then we added data detectors. Those are the classes used by Apple to recognize different items in text, like your Apple Mail app or your iMessage app may do that. So there's a phone number, it recognizes it's a phone number, makes it a clickable link. And we have the same functionality in the plugin to find phone numbers, URLs, email addresses, flight numbers, and postal addresses. Can be really handy, and the nice thing is that Apple keeps this framework updated, so you automatically benefit if they improve it. Then we have our SQL plugin, which is an alternative to what Xojo brings for SQL support. And we support now a lot of more SQL Server types. So you can now, for example, use kubesql directly from the plugin, or DuckDB, or SQL Anywhere, whatever you like. Especially, we are happy to connect to Microsoft SQL Server from a Mac or Linux device directly without installing any drivers. We just bring the library with the application. What? If you have another database you would like to connect to, we may add it, but yeah. So I added edit and update methods for the SQL database class, so you can edit records like you used to in Xojo. I also added the support for the row set class. And for the SQLite library, we got the extensions for math, geopoly, and Unicode. So you can decide to use them. And also for SQLite, we have functions to dump the database as a string or as a file. which helps you to export content of your SQLite database as SQL statements. The plugin also does blob streaming, by the way. So if you have big blobs in your database, you can get them in chunks into a file without loading them all in memory. The plugin also supports multi-threading. So if you do queries in a thread and you use our MT methods, we actually do the work in a preemptive thread, and your application is not blocked. And we can do bulk transfers, so you can tell the plugin to not just load record by record, but load always maybe 100 records in one go, which reduces your time needed for the network, because you're not sending out a package for every row, but you load them all together. Then we have RapidMQ. This is something a big company requested. They have a RapidMQ messaging server, and they like to connect from Xojo with it. So I implemented the open source library for this. And you can use it, the plugin, to connect to a server, listen for messages, as well as send some new messages to other listeners. The whole thing is cross-platform, so you can use it on Mac, Windows, Linux. And distribute your jobs this way. Then we have some people doing math in Xojo. So because double has limited precision, we got BigNumber. This is a 320-bit floating point number with a precision of 77 digits. But then people complained. We got bigger number. So, more precision.
Wow.
2,560 bits with 600 digits. That was then sufficient for the time being. But then someone asked me, "Oh, that's floating point. We need exact precision. So we got a large number." Yeah, just picking a cluster. 4,000 bits, 1,200 digits. They are optimized a little bit, so if you just have small numbers, they don't calculate with all the big. So the class is optimized to know if you have leading zeros and be quicker. But some people really do calculations in Xojo, and we have a big currency class in the examples to show you how to use large number to make a currency with more precision behind the decimal separator. Yeah, we also have users with Windows. So I moved to Visual Studio 2019 some time ago, and some plugins now need the 2019 runtime. We may have documented it somewhere. I think 2 or 3 of the 500 plugin parts need the new runtime. I got classes for thread polling. So the plugin offers you to do work in preemptive threads. And for that, we got thread pooling. So we reuse the threads, which saves the time for creating and destroying threads, and that makes some things faster. We also got a spell checker class for Windows. So you can use the Windows built-in spell checking to check if you spelled a word correctly. We also got a class to report an error on Windows, which writes it in the Windows system error log. So the admins, which may run your Xojo web app, can see the logs in the place they expect it to. If you have to output a log method, a log message. Then we got for our direct show classes, which we use to connect to webcams. We got a new pin. So if the webcam has more than one output port, we can also get just the audio from the left or right side, or if it has 2 cameras, pick which one. So yeah, and for the thread pooling, I also added a class where you can control how many threads the plugin is allowed to create. Then we got the WebView 2 control from Microsoft, where I built a wrapper for Xojo. So you can use the Chrome Edge engine in your applications to show websites. It's a control both with desktop and non-desktop flavors, so you can use it in your older projects and your newer projects. You can run JavaScript as you need. We have a couple of events, so you can react if the page is, for example, finished loading, or you need to open a new window. And we have, of course, methods like cut, copy, paste, so you can control a little bit what you see on the website and, for example, query the HTML from the website. Then we got events and contacts classes on Mac and iOS, so you can work with the local database on your device for contacts, reminders, and events. We got new properties there, so an event can now be have a location set as well as being the information that it's a birthday, and you can link people with a contact, so or link a map location with an event. So when you open it in your calendar, you see the matching location or the participants. We also got a class to show you the history of the event database, so you can watch for the user, whether the user adds new data in the calendar app while your application is running in the background. Then we have methods for working on Word documents. So you can load, change, and save docx documents without having Microsoft Word, of course. We added the things to find and replace tags, but a lot of people don't want to use specific tags there, so we also just added functions to look for any text and replace it with any other text. So a lot of people have some template documents for Microsoft Word, which they then customize with data from a database and then send it out to someone who wants to have it as a Word document instead of a PDF. Then we have a lot of useful little utilities on the plugin. For example, we have a string handle MBS class, which allows you to quickly add more text to, well, like build a string by adding a lot of text without always copying the intermediate text. We also got read file and write file methods to just read a file into a string quickly or write a text quickly to a file with a one-line call. We got a find byte function for memory block because, well, that was always something we could write in Xojo with a pointer, but maybe convenient to have a plugin function for that. I also got our own declare classes, and there the declare callback class to receive a callback from a library is now thread safe for all the platforms, so you can have some declare call function in a library which then creates a preemptive thread, and if the callback is coming, the plugin can route it to you and avoid any crashes with the Stack Overflow exception. Also, I added the setStandard MBS class to use setStandard compression if you ever have a need for that. And finally, after 20 years of Xojo having a serial port class, I finally got convinced by a customer to make my own, which works a little bit different and made the customer happy. And for our classes to work with MP3 or MP4 tags, we got a method to get the cover art. And then we got a few Mac features, a few smaller ones. For example, the classes using the Vision framework to detect barcodes learned a few new tricks like micro QR codes, GS1 data bars, and micro PDF barcodes. Then we got new classes for AV Foundation to handle metadata in a camera connection, so you can get you can request barcode recognition from the camera directly. The system will do it in the background, and you just get an event with the metadata, including the barcode it found. We also got an AV player looper class, which is optimized to play sound, which loops. So you don't have to do it yourself. Also, we got audio support for our scene kit classes, so you can now do 3D scenes with audio effects and have different audio sources in your landscape in the scene. And depending on where your audio is, it may play differently, so you can get 3D audio effects. And for our WebKit classes, we got functions to handle downloads. So you can have the user click on a link, and then if it's a file to download, you can actually download it and not just get the click ignored. Then I recently started a new XML plugin. You know, Xojo has XML built in, but some people have different needs, so I started to build an alternative. It has a similar interface, of course, well, it's XML. It has child nodes, it has siblings, it has parent nodes, so nodes have texts, attributes. We have Unicode support, and the performance is quite good so far. I added a lot of support for the iterators, so you can easily loop over the childs of the nodes, or about iterate over childs with a specific name somewhere deep in the hierarchy. So you can actually have the plugin find specific nodes for you. And it's for all targets and platforms, and we may add more there if you have specific needs. And recently we added MongoDB, yet another database. Some Xojo developers have clients who use other software which uses MongoDB, and so you have a need to connect to it directly, pick a database, pick a collection, which is the MongoDB way to define a table, and then you can just add new records or update existing ones, perform searches, and all the record data is stored as JSON. Actually, it's stored as BSON, binary JSON, but the plugin just converts it to JSON for you. So you can find documents, and you can run custom commands like ping, or I just wrote a blog post about using distinct. So you can do a lot of things, and for all platforms and targets. So please try it and let me know if you have questions or need more there. Also, we have regex classes for some time. We got new ones. So a new set of regex classes, which are very fast because it has a built-in compiler. For the Unicode array, it has a just-in-time compiler, so it can compile to machine code for Intel and ARM. And well, this speeds it up a lot. We have iterators and for each loop, so you can say, find me all the matching patterns in a text, and just use a for each loop in Xojo to go over them. And you can store and load the compiled patterns if you like. So you can put them in a database, for example. Then I worked on the Windows for ARM thing. So currently all plugins are built for ARM 64-bit for Windows, also for Linux, but that's not yet in the public release. The ChartDirector and XL plugins still need a library update, so those won't work for now until we update that. And now it's time to look for issues in this code, because we want to get all the bugs fixed before we have to ship Windows for ARM. So, and testing, I mainly test with Windows 11 on a VM on MacBook Pro M1. So roadmap, people ask me what's coming, and so I will continue to add more for the XML plugin. Things like validating schemas, for example, is a topic people like, and all this XLST stuff. So we'll see. Also, it looks like we may get WebSockets into the plugins. Not sure when exactly, but got a few requests for that. And I'm looking for what's in the new operation system from Apple to see if we can add maybe some Mac on iOS features, and there are new targets coming. So Linux is already basically finished. Android, we have to wait for a plugin SDK. And otherwise, please send me your wishes for new plugin ideas, because what you saw on the feature set has been requested by people mostly. So I'm always looking for new ideas. If you need a license, yeah, we have a little discount for a new license if you need one, but I think most of you, if not all, have already a license. And there's also the Omega bundle, which just got extended finally to 26th September. So if you want to get an Omega bundle for someone, please do so before the end of the month. And now, do we have questions?
So, the plugin you have for QR code support, is that only for that?
Well, I have several sets of classes. So there is a class for Mac to recognize barcodes, but there's also a cross-platform class with setbar to recognize barcodes, and there's one from Sing. Yeah, I have three different things. You know, over the time you collect duplicate classes. Like we have also 3 sets of classes for regular expression. So, yeah.
We were working with YouTube governors who plugged into that for Windows, and there were a couple issues. A consultant was doing this for us. You know if those were resolved, and I'd like to tell you what they were, but I don't know what they were. I just know that there were a couple of things.
I have over this year worked on the Bluetooth, of a new set of Bluetooth classes for Windows, and so with every release I did a little bit more work there, added more classes, more methods, and recently I started making an example for that, and I hope that finally later this year this example will actually get working. And
is it far enough along for us to use?
Well, I implement a lot of classes, and technically anyone can just put them together and they should work. But I'm working myself to get this. I have a little heart rate monitor measures things, and I would like to get my example to work with that when I have time, and so I can say that it's working. But currently the classes are there, and yeah, well, yeah.
One of the things is, like, when I started the project, I thought I need to do such and such, and I know I can't do it in Xojo. I have to go search an example. I go look and start searching the examples. It'd be really nice if you had a really extensive index, searchable index, so it's cross-referencing the different things, the different examples do, so you can click on it, whatever that example. You don't have to search through those. What is it, like 30 or 40 folders now?
Yeah, but all the examples are also on the documentation page. So if you use the Google search there, it should also show you the text in the examples. Yeah, but we have also you can also download our documentation for local use, and it also includes the examples.
But it's not just the examples in one document, that's all very different documents.
No, I mean, I have a project which goes over our 2000 example files and uses the Arbit tool to convert them to HTML. And so we can cross-reference in the documentation. So every class you have in my documentation has on the bottom a list of example projects using that class. So you can quickly find which example is for this class. Yeah. No, we have nothing for smart speakers. You would, but this is just another web API. So you would use an URL connection in Xojo or a curl plugin call to connect to the API and send the right JSON or XML to the server. So there is nothing I need a plugin for.
I don't know enough about it, but I know there's an API that with two apps you can access these services directly. I guess that's what I'm looking for, but nothing in the book.
No. More questions? Yeah, do you like to raise hands? Will you?
Not have the main one?
I don't. I get that pop-up that says you need to buy a license. I'm going to take advantage of it.
Okay. Yeah, so thank you, and see you on the next conference.